What is up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Guys, found this video. We got why European trucks are different. As you know, the trucking industry, me personally, I think it's a big deal. You know, this is how we get our food. This is how we can take. I guess you can add it to that import exports type of thing. But trucking, interesting business, cool business, but when it comes to here in the States, these trucks, they take up a lot of space. They take up a lot of space, especially when you're in a hurry to go somewhere. These trucks, they don't go the fastest and stuff like that. But I never seen how it was in Europe. I never knew Europe had, people drove and delivered things in their trucks in Europe. Didn't know that. I thought it was when I seen the exports and stuff like that, it was like on ship and all that stuff. So we're finna check out why European trucks are different. Y'all hit that subscribe button. Maybe you're in the trucking industry. Always interesting field, but let's jump into it.
If you live in America, like me, then you're probably familiar with semi-trucks. They're on the highways, the country roads, in downtowns, and more often than not the middle of nowhere. Semis are pretty hard to miss, most being around 70 feet in length, with 53 of those feet just being the trailer. There's a lot of variation in cab size in the US, mostly because there are only laws enforcing the trailer size, not the cab size. This has led to some interesting designs, but one thing you don't often see on the US roads is the cabover truck design. These were used fairly prominently in the US up until the Motor Carrier Act of 1980, which deregulated the trucking industry and removed the overall length limit for semi-trucks. With nothing left to mandate that truck cabs had to maintain their stubby appearance, manufacturers began to move the engine forward into what is called the standard cab design, as it increased ride comfort and preserved cabin space for the driver's use. Meanwhile, in Europe, the overall length regulations remained in place.
See, I've seen a truck that has this type of style, but it wasn't, I've seen this style before. It wasn't like major. I don't know if it carried a lot in it, but I've seen the truck style before.
Though the specific numbers vary based on country and container type, for the most part semi-trucks, or lorries if you call them that, are limited in length to 18.75 meters or 61.5 feet. This regulatory pressure on manufacturers led to the discontinuing of almost all long-nosed truck designs, but bureaucracy is not the only reason for the cabover's dominance in Europe. Another reason that cabovers are preferred in Europe has to do with overall scale and road infrastructure. In places like the US, Australia, or New Zealand, roads tend to be wider, straighter, and easier to navigate, whereas in Europe, things are a bit more complicated. Europe as a whole is on a smaller scale than many other parts of the world, as the ancient infrastructure was built to be more human-sized than car-sized. As such, there are more narrow streets, tight corners, and complicated docks to back into.
Yeah, That's why I'm surprised they had trucks. Like, I feel like I've probably seen some in certain videos, but they didn't look like the big ones, like that one they showed that was 61 feet.
Many other parts of the world, as the ancient infrastructure was built to be more human-sized than car-sized. As such, there are more narrow streets, tight corners, and complicated docks to back into. One major benefit of the cabover design is the turning radius, which can afford to be significantly tighter than the standard cabin design. Without a huge nose to worry about, European cabs have an overall shorter wheelbase and a greater range of motion. There are some really great videos online of truckers fitting their massive rigs down some impossibly small roads. I'll link to a few in the description below.
I need to check that out.
Another factor which has led to the cabover's success is fuel efficiency, or lack thereof. In the US, where driving distances are longer and speed limits are higher, aerodynamics are a much larger deal, as the efficiency of a fleet can have major impacts on the business which owns it. In Europe, however, distances are shorter and truck speeds are kept slower, which allows for trucks to adopt smaller engines and worry a bit less about aerodynamics.
I always thought trucks should have like their own little roads that only they can be on. Me personally, I think that would help them and help other drivers. I always thought that. I don't know. They like, especially in Texas, they're always doing construction, making new bridges and roads and stuff. You would think they would just make a road for just trucks. Those things are huge.
Cabovers also come with plenty of downsides too. For one, they're much less comfortable than a standard size cab, as often you're sitting directly on top of the engine, and since the overall cab size is smaller, living out of your truck is much less feasible. Thankfully, for European truckers, on average they drive shorter distances for shorter periods of time than their American counterparts, as legally the maximum drive time per day is 9 hours. In addition, Europe overall has a significantly lower percentage of owner-operators who live out of their truck full-time. This doesn't mean that owner-operators don't exist though, and I'm sure many of them would love to have some extra cabin space, but it's not as necessary as it is for American truck drivers who, on average, work for about 14 hours a day, 11 hours of that being on the road. So for the Americans, the extra space...
I don't know if in Europe, they be having like different like truck stops and resting places for trucks. Usually they'll park in like a Walmart or a big major grocery store or something like that. But I mean, they making truck stops now where, you know, it's very beneficial for truckers. If on the road long, you ain't got to sleep in your truck if you don't have to.
Ability is greatly appreciated. To any real truck drivers watching this video, I just want to take the time to thank you for the work that you do. The world would absolutely fall apart without you guys on the road. But anyway, that's about it for me. Sorry this was a shorter video, but I found it interesting to make nonetheless, and I hope you did too. Thank you.
It is a major thing, you know, like I said, that's how we get our goods and stuff. How we, people that have a business, a trucking business, some good money in there, some good stuff in there, but yeah, definitely different. That's what I was thinking, because the roads in Europe are very narrow. So, I mean, it's a good thing that they're not as big over in Europe, but it would be cool. But like you said, shout out to the ones that are doing this job, because I can drive. I hate driving long distance. This is just me, but shout out to the people that can drive 9 to 11 hours a day, no problem, and get these businesses, keep them up and rolling. But y'all let me know what you think about the European trucks. Y'all hit that subscribe button, and y'all be blessed, be the best, and be you. I'm out.